My name's Chris Cubbage. I'm the Executive Editor with My Security Media, and welcome to My Security TV. Today we're joined by Rebecca Katie, the EVVA Technical Sales Manager here at Davcor, and we're actually at Davcor's head offices, so thanks for joining us, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
We're going to be talking about the EVVA, it's called EVVA Access to Security, the 4KS Maximum Security Master Key System. And you've got a whole presentation here, and this is in the background obviously with us. Maybe what's the bit of the background with EVVA and the brand itself in how it's in that space in the first place?
Yeah, so EVVA as a company, so that's a family-owned company, originated from Austria and Vienna. So it originated obviously as a family-owned business, and it's still today a family-owned business. It started in 1919, and today it's 101 years old.
Nice.
And still operating as a family-owned business.
Okay.
So I think it's third generation now. I think in order to kind of understand where 4KS situates itself in the market, we need to understand a little bit more about what a key just isn't a key anymore. So when we're looking at obviously domestic keys and things like that, the run-of-the-mill mum and dad's front door key, when you look at the security around a key system like that, because it is still obviously a locking key system, but in terms of the greater security, obviously it's at the lower end, so it's low to, I'd probably still would just say stick it at low.
Yep.
So when we think about something like that, you know, you take your domestic key, you can still get a copy at Mr. Minute at Bunnings, the likes of those particular organisations. If obviously you were to get locked out, you can still have that lock penetrated by locksmithing methods by a locksmith. So in terms of security and gain entry style, obviously you can penetrate it quite easily. When you go up into the market space, we look at more like an inline system. So exactly, you probably see that more on a strata building, commercial building and stuff like that. So we'd probably put that in the medium security range. Now with the inline system, obviously you're only registered by the design of that key blank for mainly a period of time of about 10 years, I think the normal registered design period stands for. So then after we look at that type of key system, it's still operating on the same internal workings of what your mum and dad's front door lock is, but you're just basically restricted by the key blank design itself. Yep. So then when we look up obviously in the maximum high security range, that's when we have obviously a little bit more elements come into play. So when it comes to 4KS, we currently have the longest running patent life, and we think that patent life is something that is exceptionally crucial when it comes to a key system. Obviously you're restricted by other manufacturers, you know, obviously no one can obviously copy your stuff and things like that. So when we look at the maximum security range, patent life is important, environmental factors are important, and obviously the amount of coding potential that system can create is also extremely important. So when we look at 4KS and we dive into those key aspects, 4KS is basically designed for the harshest environments you would like to put it in. Because once we get out of the office space environment, obviously things start to change because they become out of our control. Obviously the dirt, the grime, the dust, the salt and things of those. So when it comes to that, obviously 4KS, it's a springless system, so therefore it's fine to go into any of those harsh environments and it's going to stand up to it. So yeah, 4KS is quite a good system to dive into the key system.
What is different? You mentioned that there's no springs in there, and the key design is quite unique.
It is.
In its design. And it's the mechanical aspect. Which part is unique in the new design here? Is it the mechanical aspect in the way that the what would be traditionally the springs is interacting with that key? There's no movement in there. There's a different design in the movement. Yeah.
So the way that it basically works. So the key is a lot different. So it's obviously extremely strong. So we use nickel silver to be able to create our keys. Yep. Now the key design itself is actually a third generation curved technology. So what I mean by curved technology is that instead of being a traditional, key cuts on the top of the key, it's actually a 3 symmetry line that overlaps with each other. So it's a curved lap system. So with that, obviously we've got quite a strong key. We've got an overlapping system that can't be read virtually by eye. No machine can decode it, so you can't actually work out what the cuts are. Now, the tip of our key is actually something that's of interest as well. So we call it an ergonomical tip of our key. Now, 2 reasons why we do that. It's actually a bit of a self-cleaner. So as the key is actually getting inserted inside of our cylinders, it's actually moving any of maybe potential swarf or dirt, grime dust inside that cylinder. It's actually moving it out of the way. So when our key is fully inserted, it actually moves all of the internal components into obviously the correct sections. Now normally, traditionally, spring pressure will allow that to happen, but whereas there's spring pressure, there's maintenance involved in the springs as well. So with 4KS, because there's no springs on the locking pins themselves, basically we have virtually a maintenance-free system, because they don't need to be obviously continuously lubricated.
And is that contributing to being anti-picking proof as well?
Yes, definitely. With traditional locksmith methods, obviously spring pressure is something that can enable it to be less pick resistant, I would say. But with 4KS, it's virtually pick proof.
Okay. So there's no tools out there to pick it?
No. Obviously stuff on YouTube is exceptionally deceiving.
Yes.
But no, to my knowledge, I've never seen anyone pick 4KS.
And obviously it needs that sort of pick proof and that design in order to get the SCEC endorsement in the first place. Yeah,
definitely. The security features around 4KS is obviously the highest standard. So even in the Australian standards, we have SC8 as well. When it comes to SCEC, we're SL3, which is the top level that you can gain for a mechanical master key system.
Now, attacking a key system and a lock, there's a few different ways that we can do this. What are the primary defence mechanisms built into the 4KS? Yeah,
so with 4KS, in terms of obviously doing a drilling attack from the front of it, or the front of the cylinder itself, there's a lot of hard material with inside there, so the control bars on either side of the cylinder, and also there is hardened drill pins that go through the whole face of the cylinder itself. So in terms of drilling it, it's virtually impenetrable to get through with a rotary pick, if you'd like to put that in that terms.
And what about picking itself?
Yeah, in terms of picking protection, it's virtually impossible as well. I know YouTube can be a little bit misleading in that aspect, but virtually pick-proof as well, yes.
And what's unique about the pick-proof aspects of it?
Yeah, so in terms of traditional locksmith methods, spring tension is something that is quite crucial in terms of picking. With 4KS on the locking pins themselves, there's actually no springs. So that's why we like to say that it's active place technology as well.
Okay.
And just to expand on that just a little bit, is basically meaning that inside the lock cylinder itself, or the key basically drives everything into position in order for it to turn.
And the impression protection as well. This can't be sort of impressioned and then manufactured elsewhere, even in a private way?
No, definitely not. So in terms of decoding the key codes itself on 4KS is virtually impossible. So there's no machine that's able to obviously decode a key, and to read it by eye, good luck to you.
And the reverse engineering is also covered?
Yeah, 3D printing is something that's obviously that needs to be spoken about within our industry today, because there is a lot of things on the market that can be obviously 3D printed just simply by taking a photo. But with 4KS, when you actually look at the one side of a 4KS key, it's actually different on the other side. So even they did take a picture, you need 2 pictures, and in order to get that tolerance down to our tolerance level for it to operate is virtually impossible to do so.
Right. So Rebecca, tell us how it actually works.
Yeah, so what we'll find inside every 4KS cylinder is very, very simple. So we have 12 individual locking pins, then we have 2 control bars which lock into the pins themselves, and then on top of our cylinder we always have a profile bar, which is either unique to the dealer, which is the locksmith, or the end user as well. And
all of those components need to come together for that key to work and unlock the lock.
Exactly. So we use active placement technology, which in the short form basically means when that key is inserted into obviously that cylinder, it moves every single individual component into place. So we don't rely on any spring pressure obviously to make that happen. If we can get that key inserted and home, it'll operate.
Traditional locks are spring-loaded pins.
Yes.
This doesn't use springs at all. So what's the benefits of that?
Yeah, definitely the benefits is the harsh environments that we can be placed in. So in terms of the dirtier, the saltier, the grimier, the better. So wherever we have spring pressure, always creates that level of maintenance that has to be continuously updated. With 4KS, we have a virtually maintenance-free system. So the client or the end user does not have to go back to that cylinder consecutive every 12-18 months to refreshen it. If it's in the field, it will be fine.
Nice. And the absence of springs makes the picking harder as well, or virtually impossible. That sort of solves 2 things at once.
Yeah, it definitely does. We're obviously virtually pick-proof, but yeah, with traditional locksmith methods, you need that. Sometimes in order to obviously operate, spring pressure is needed.
Now this is quite an advanced system in terms of locking. Your role with EVVA and the technical sales manager, how exciting is this for you in terms of the locking? I mean, it's quite a unique part of the industry.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's one of those underappreciated parts of the industry as well. It's a critical aspect of what we do.
Yeah, so I've been quite lucky with EVVA. So I'm a locksmith by trade, for been in the security industry for 8 years now. So I've been lucky enough to see EVVA, the brand itself, since it first originated to come into Australia, to where it is now. So currently we have 4 different key systems that we provide with EVVA. 4Case is obviously our newest one.
Yep.
But I've been lucky enough to be on the other end of EVVA, obviously installing, servicing and the maintenance and stuff like that, and then moving up to where we are now. So I've been quite happy to see it from where it first started to where it is now. It's very, very exciting.
And obviously that technical approach, you need to have that intricate understanding of how this locking system works.
Yep.
As a master key as well. So your role is out there to explain it to the clients. And what's your client feedback on something like this?
Definitely our first initial things that we get back from our end users quite regularly is, wow, what an exciting looking key. We're so used to the traditional edge cut keys, which obviously they have their own set of issues that you can potentially be read and things like that. But yeah, with 4Case it's always that instant feedback, wow, what is such an exciting key.
And it does send a signal to the end user who's holding the key. It's visually unique.
Very, yes.
So they then appreciate that that lock that they're putting in is an important lock.
Yep.
And it's obviously had a lot of thought put into that. And I suppose the appreciation of the security role comes along. You don't often see a new design in a key.
No, that's it. So 4Case is actually the third generation of the curve technology that EVVA's actually brought into Australia. So it's definitely been well developed, well manufactured. And to my understanding of the security industry, I think that a mechanical system will always have its place.
Absolutely. Well, look, thanks for joining us on My Security TV. For the security sector, looking at keys and locking systems is always a unique part of the industry. So thank you to Rebecca, Katie, for joining us here on My Security TV.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Good on you.
Ta.